Good afternoon. It is Bongekile Matsupe here, the Deputy Politics Editor at News 24. We are coming to you from the first day of the 5th National General Council of the ANC, and we are going to have a lovely conversation about what is happening here at Birchwood. With me, I have News 24's politics journalist Siamtanda Kapa and Carol Payton, a writer-at-large at News 24, and both of them bring a wealth of information about the ANC. But I want to say this is my second NGC, but my first NGC, I was still very wet behind the ears when Muiponi Malifane, the then politics editor at the Sowetan, dragged me to go to an NGC, and I won't even tell you what was happening at that. But Carol, I do imagine that this is not your first. You've probably attended all the NGCs. Tell us about the significance of NGCs and maybe touch on what is the significance of this NGC in particular compared to other NGCs that you've attended?
It's too long ago. Okay, been to all of them, and actually the purpose of the NGC, just for the listeners, is that it's supposed to not discuss the leadership. It's supposed to discuss the policy. It's supposed to discuss, are we doing what we said we'd do at our last Congress? Are we implementing our resolutions? Are our people in government doing what we put them there to do? And so that's the purpose. But inevitably, the leadership discussion always comes up. And so historically, this was started for the purposes of let's just have a space to discuss policy. But in fact, it hasn't ever worked out like that. And it's possible that this one could be a little bit different. Not different in the sense that it's off the agenda. There will be no discussions, no caucuses, no meetings amongst people building alliances and so on. There will be that. But I do think that the ANC is in a position now where it is, as Cyril Ramaphosa was saying, if they don't renew, they will perish. So they really do have to discuss these issues. And I think for the first time, there is going to be a much greater focus on the organization and how to build the structures, what to do, because where they have been having this discussion for 20 years about corruption, about branches that don't work, etc., etc. But I think sort of the writing is on the wall now, and they have to have the discussion.
Thank you so much, Carol, for those insights. Siamtanda, you are a person who frequents Luthuli House a lot to cover the ANC, and the build-up to this NGC, there's been a lot of, murmurs around, are we removing the president? Tell us about that and what, when you've been going to Luthuli House or when you've been speaking to your sources regarding what Carol was saying, this platform is not supposed to do. What were some of those, comments or coming from people coming to this NGC?
So for me, in the lead up to today or this week, we saw that story about just before the G20 summit, Cyril Ramaphosa might resign, and then the ANC was in overdrive trying to just quell those, which obviously made the situation, or it made things worse. So everyone on the ground has just been kind of trying to counter that. But then the rumors are there. One evening I got a call from someone asking, hey, there's a family meeting today, is he resigning, So people are actually believing it. They are on edge, so if I can put it that way. So, but besides, outside of that, I do think, like Carol is saying, there is a genuine interest this time around into discussing policy, into getting into the debate, into discussing other stuff besides the sideshow of leadership.
And I want us to maybe spend a little bit of time on that one, Siamtanda and Carol, on what is it that the ANC needs to discuss, right? Of course, we've seen with the 2024 elections, and I don't think some in the ANC might have anticipated the drop, but I don't think any of them ever thought that they will see this party that was, established in 1912 dropping to 40%, which speaks to maybe the fatigue from the people that have been voting for the party to say, hey, we still love you, we still believe in you, but we've gotten to a point where we are impatient. So from you, I'll start with you, Carol, and then I'll bring you in, Siamtana. What do you really think that needs to be discussed here, and that the leadership, like Siamtanda is saying, the leadership conversation is a sideshow, but what is it that the ANC at the heart of this week needs to discuss?
Look, there's only one issue to be discussed. It's how to rescue the ANC, how to get the vote back above 50%. Now, whether you believe that's likely or whether you don't, given the trends, that is the discussion that they have to have. And so I think what they need to do then is then unpack backwards, well, what do we need to do that? And I think that Cyril Ramaphosa's comment where he said to the hall, he said, well, we didn't actually do our door-to-door work properly last time round, and we fell down there. So what they need to do is to rebuild those branches and rebuild their volunteers so that they can go and do the door-to-door, because if they don't get there and reach the voters, and as he said, the large stay-away vote, the very large stay-away vote mostly came out of the ANC support base, and they have to revitalize that. But as he was saying as well, we need to be there. We need to move the electorate away from cynicism, and then he said to cautious optimism. He didn't say then he said maybe outright support, but he's aware of the mountain they've got to climb.
Carol, let me stay with you a little bit. Obviously, what you are referring to the people that are watching us is the opening remarks of the ANC president, Cyril Ramaphosa, who officially opened this meeting. But let me stay with you there. We've attended ANC meetings before. We've heard ANC leaders speaking before about the renewal, speaking about we need to do things differently. But it almost sounds as though it's just rhetoric. It's saying what people need to hear. And why? Do you think that they are being genuine with this, or is it, because one would have thought that the 40% dip from the elections would have really given them a wake-up call, and we would have seen a tremendous change, but we are not seeing that. So why do you think that it would be different now, or why do you think that him delivering this message to that plenary will suddenly change things?
Well, it goes to the point of, whether you believe they can get back up to 50% or whether you don't really. And that's a whole nother debate, because you can see from the activist core of the ANC that it's quite lethargic. And you also can see in the ANC ministers in the cabinet how many of them have just, once they were in cabinet, reverted to kind of business as usual. There's no rush. We've got 5 years to do this, etc., etc. And you've seen the contrast with the DA ministers kind of really going for it and getting stuff done and showing them up to actually be not very efficient. So that lethargy that's in the ANC activist base and in the ANC itself is part of the problem that has to be overcome if they're really going to go out and energize voters.
Siamtana, let me bring you in as someone who also dabbles in covering local government, which is also a big issue. And in one of your stories, you mentioned that it's likely one of the things that has to be discussed here. And you've been on the ground, you've seen the situation, you've covered committee meetings on local government oversight. Do you think that there's anything that the ANC can do at this point that would change the minds of the people that you've spoken to, who are crying for basic services, but also just like people on the ground, even activists of the ANC that you speak with? Do they have confidence that they can still renew this party and that they can still draw people to it?
I think what you're asking me is what was supposed to have been discussed at the ANC roll call in September, but it was never discussed, unfortunately. It was, again, another gathering of the ANC, and it was nice, etc. So is there anything that they can do to, either retain support or make sure they don't lose the metros, the two of the metros that they have that they lead in a majority, the conversations that I'm hearing, people are admitting to each other that, listen, we might really lose here. We might lose Mangawung. We might lose PCM. They are dealing with the situation that, look, we're going to decrease in Joburg. If we're looking at the other candidates as well, that other parties are fielding, like Helen Zille, strong candidates. So the conversation is happening. They're realizing that it really is do or die, and it's one of the reasons why local government is a topic that's going to be discussed in commissions as well. And we're going to have to wait and see what they come out with here, because they do have a 10-point plan or an action plan for local government. I personally have not really seen it being implemented or being fully implemented on the ground in municipalities. I think they've been preoccupied with regional conferences instead. But so I'm not sure really.
You know, I'd like to just come in here. You know, the thing is that the issue is, do they know what to do? Do they have the right people in place in those local governments to do the right things, to do the things that need to be done, to actually deliver? And that's the problem. I mean, they've already created these institutions. People have been there for a long time. They've obviously, all the elected officials are there, but then all the appointed officials are also there. And these are people who have not been able to deliver for a long time. So are they going to be able to suddenly start delivering in the next 12 months before an election? And that's their big problem, because, and you've seen some of the regions sort of deciding, okay, this mayor's out, that mayor's out, for exactly this reason. But I think that the mountain is a lot bigger than that one, than just firing a few mayors.
So kind of interesting that Carol should bring that up about, you know, are the people, especially in municipalities, doing, because I think a few weeks ago, or about 2 weeks ago, you wrote a story where the head of elections, and please correct me, Kgalema Motlanthe, was speaking about how they are now going to, you know, the attitude going into the local government elections, and how they are working at changing the rules, that just because you are the regional chairperson won't necessarily mean you will be a mayor. But also you broke the story about how they were now also going to announce their people before going into elections, as opposed to waiting. Talk to us about that. Maybe they speak to what Carol is saying, that maybe these are some of the strategies they're employing.
Look, the ANC is doing a complete overhaul of how they choose their candidates. I don't know if it's going to help, but they now, for example, let's make Joburg our case study. Dada Morero has lost conference. Loyiso Masuku won conference. The question is Dada going to be fired because Loyiso is the chairperson? Because there is an unspoken rule in the ANC that if you are the chairperson, you become the premier. If you're the provincial chairperson, if you're leading that structure, you are then deployed to lead the government entity. So that change, Kgalema Motlanthe, it was one of the changes that they're bringing about, including lifestyle audits, including qualifications, which is what Carol is speaking about around meritocracy. But qualifications for mayors in the ANC, it's a muddy situation, because most of them have qualifications, just a few, like Princess. But yeah, so, but their strategy to try and change how they choose their candidates, announcing a candidate before elections, I don't know, do you think it makes a difference?
I think it is going to make it. I think they have to. Look, the thing is, because the DA does it, and because they've put up Helen Zille, they've actually got no choice, so they have to. The issue is, who is going to be that candidate? Because in Joburg, for instance, okay, now Loyiso Masuku is the regional chair. Is she going to be the mayor? You know, is she going to be strong enough to take on Helen Zille? Is the ANC NGC going to think that she's strong enough? And imagine the fallout if she's not. Because then if she's not, and then you've got this fallout of this political grouping around this person who's parachuted in, who doesn't have the support. So it's a really difficult set of dynamics.
My question is that other people who are choosing these candidates, the NEC and the top 7, are they going to be able to look beyond the factions and which group this person falls under, and actually think about what needs to happen in that specific complexity. And by how the ANC has moved until now, I don't think so.
Yeah. It's very interesting that you raised the thing of factions, because I think also part of what is a problem with the ANC is that it's always, they will claim that we are not factional, but everything that they do is always, around factions. And Loyiso has come out to say that she's not preoccupied with being a mayor. She wants to be remembered as the regional chairperson that, united the ANC in Joburg. But we'll see, because everyone is addicted to power, and being the mayor of Joburg, one of the largest cities in Africa, is not a small-time job, and everyone would want to have that job. I want us to wrap up, but there's something that happened this morning on the first day of this conference, and I'm going to put it to you, Siamtanda and Carol. I covered the picket or a protest by ANC staff members who were protesting over unpaid salaries, and spoke to some of them, the leadership of Nehau, saying that it's not just only the issue of payments of salaries, but it's also their contributions, their medical aid, their provident fund, and they were saying for them, they were like, we don't want to sabotage what is happening here. We were here all week preparing for this meeting, but we just want to demonstrate our frustration in that we've had enough. And interestingly, and I think someone pointed this out in one of the posts I put on Twitter, a video, that it appeared that there were two worlds happening in one video, because at one you have these workers who are saying some of our salaries are outstanding since 2023, and you have these German machines driving into into this venue for this meeting. But talk to me, Siamtana, about the symbolism of that as well. Also, for a party that is as old as the ANC to still have these persistent issues of salaries not being paid. And I mean, I can't even imagine how anxiety-inducing it is to not know whether you are going to be paid in December. You have children that you must buy clothes for. You have, some of them were saying we have outstanding school fees, and our kids' reports haven't been released. But speak to me about also the symbolism of that in this ANC, that, the country at large is crying about. You've had the power for 30 years, you haven't looked after us, but also in-house, you haven't been looking out for your own staff members.
I think it's disgusting that the ANC, that calls itself a serious organization, we're a big organization, we are more than 113 years old, and these people show up for work. Okay, when I go to the Tuli House, they are there. When we're at briefings, they are there, they are working, they have not downed tools. They did so today for about an hour and rotating shifts. They are not abandoning posts. They are committed to this organization because, look, it's their job, but also they have sentimental ties to this party as well. And the ANC can't do its bit and pay them. I think it's disgusting, and it says a lot that a party that claims that it could lead society and it can take care of people can't take care of their own.
Carol, I mean, you have more experience than Siamtana and myself in terms of the ANC and covering the ANC. Has there ever been a time where the ANC has been at this lowest, that we see that they are even unable to pay staff salaries?
You were going to say, has there ever been a time that they've actually paid all the salaries on time? Because that's more actually the pattern. And this has been a thing that's gone on for years and years and years. And they have these periodic funding crises. And, the reason is their budget is just, their expenses are just way more than their revenue. And that's been a growing problem, and it's got worse with the party funding sort of restrictions. But they really need to actually face this problem and say, okay, we can't employ all of these people. Let's right-size this organization. And every Treasurer General that comes along says, and none of them have had the courage to do it. So this is why you get this sort of thing, and I completely agree with you. I mean, to be in this situation where you haven't been able to pay your school fees is really, really horrible.
And maybe just a little bit, and then we'll wrap out. I want to stay on the finances of the ANC, Siamtana, because you also wrote a story a few months ago where the ANC had moved from hosting their NEC meetings. They used to hold them where?
They used to be here.
Yeah, and then they moved them to some some municipal building. And then you had asked also, is this because of funds? And I think you got some backlash about that. But also even this was supposed to be at Nazareth, and then it has now been moved to Birchwood. But consistently we have been told that no, our finances are okay.
No, I asked about this specific event, but why are you moving it from Nazareth to Birchwood? Is it because of money issues? And the Secretary General said, no, if we are not, we are paying our creditors. What it always says, we're paying our bills, we're good, we're just moving to Birchwood because of logistics. Logistically, it just makes sense. It's close to the airport, it's close to facilities. But I think the indictment is also on the TG, hey? Because consistently she says the ANC's books are in good order, we are paying everything we need to pay, we are asking our members to contribute. Understanding that it's a historic problem, funding in the ANC, and they do speak about how donors are no longer wanting to align with them because of what is reported around corruption and the brand of the party. They're struggling really to get support. I mean, and now it is a 40% party. And so the question is, who will want to donate and align with the 40% party?
And the party was featured prominently in the Madlanga Commission and the ad hoc committee, Carol.
Well, we know there's still people who are getting those big fat tenders and who are still buying all sorts of things, clearly paying some of the bills. But yeah, I think their funding problems are only beginning.
Thank you for watching. From myself, Bongekile, Siamtanda, and Carol, thank you so much, ladies, for this lovely conversation, which we hope has given our viewers an idea of what is likely going to happen here. Please stay with All News 24 platforms as we bring you the coverage of the NGC here at Birchwood Hotel.